Linda's boot caught a crack in Toronto's bustling distillery district, sending her sprawling toward a kaleidoscope of scarves and laughter. 50 years old, suddenly horizontal, she clutched her grandmother's leather notebook like a journey raft. Strangers swarmed, helping, cooing, but their warmth couldn't fill hollow left when her youngest fled for uni. That night, Googling how not to drown in quiet, she stumbled upon a virtual journaling circle, Midlife Inc. fam. Skeptical, she scribbled one raw truth. Replies Linda's boot caught a crack in Toronto's bustling sidewalk, sending her stumbling toward a community center flyer fluttering against a lamppost. Journaling circle, all ages welcome. 50 years of life, yet her fingers hesitated over creased leather notebook in her bag, its surface worn smooth by decades of grocery lists and half-finished thoughts. That notebook had seen her through midnight feedings and college applications, but now its pages yawned empty, echoing quiet that had settled over her house like dust. Her deepest fear wasn't loneliness, it was becoming irrelevant, a sweater tucked too long in a drawer, forgotten until someone needed warmth. But tapping into a virtual circle of strangers felt like admitting defeat. Still, she logged in, gripping her pen like a lifeline. Pixelated faces flickered to life, a mosaic of silver-haired wisdom and ink-stained hands. Someone shared a haiku about burnt toast, another confessed they'd cried over a rerun of Cheers. Linda snorted. Fam got it. She pressed pen to paper, leather cool under her palm, and let words come clumsy first, then steady. Memories surfaced, her daughter's first steps, that time she'd accidentally dyed cat pink. Laughter bubbled up, unexpected as a sunbeam through November clouds. Notebook wasn't just a relic, it was a bridge, stitching past to present with every loop of her handwriting. By midnight, her cheeks ached from smiling. House still stood quiet, but silence felt different now, not hollow, but humming with possibility, like pause between breaths before a leap. Linda's boot caught a crack in Toronto's bustling sidewalk, sending her leather notebook skidding across damp pavement. She scooped it up, brushing autumn leaves off its worn cover, fingers tracing initials embossed decades ago, back when days brimmed with packed lunches and permission slips. Now, silence echoed in her mid-century bungalow, its walls too wide for just one. A neon flyer fluttered against a community center bulletin board, virtual journaling circles stories, not sadness. Creators scoffed. 50 years old and she was taking journey advice from a pixelated support group. But that night, curled under a quilt her daughter had left behind, she logged on. Faces flickered to life on screen, women with silver streaks, bold scarves, laughter lines. A moderator named Priya, voice warm as chai, tossed prompts like confetti, write about a time you got lost but found something better. Describe your future self's quirkiest habit. Linda's pen hesitated, then danced. Words spilled about forgotten dreams, painting classes abandoned, a road trip postponed for soccer tournaments. Pages filled with messy catharsis, ink smudging where tears hit. Her notebook, once a relic of grocery lists, became a compass. Weeks in, she noticed patterns. Mondays smelled like cinnamon rolls her son loved, Thursdays ached with phantom piano practice. But between those lines, woman scribbled rebellions, salsa lessons rec center, a solo hike through Rouge Valley. One entry simply read, bought purple sneakers. Felt ridiculous. Wore them anyway. Priya nudged her to share aloud. Voice trembling, creator read about rediscovering her city, how she'd wandered into a Kensington Market spice shop and left with saffron, and a stranger's life story. Group erupted in snaps, someone crowning her queen of sidewalk saga. By winter's first snow, Linda's journal had a new chapter, leading a local writing workshop that very community center. Nervous newcomers clutched their own notebooks, and she grinned, tossing Priya's signature prompt into room like a lifeline. Tell me about stumble that led you here. Her leather-bound pages now held more than memories, they were maps. And for first time in years, Linda wasn't just turning pages, she was living them. Linda's boot caught a crack in Toronto's bustling sidewalk, nearly sending her sprawling. 50 years old and still tripping over her own feet, some things never changed. She clutched leather notebook tighter, its worn edges a silent promise. This time, she wouldn't let doubt win. Community centers had become her refuge since kids left. Not for yoga or pottery, but for their clunky desktop computers. Linda had scoffed when her niece mentioned a virtual journaling circle. Fam made it sound like some millennial trend. But desperation had a way of humbling even proudest empty nester. That first login felt like stepping into a confessional booth with strangers' pixelated faces as witnesses. Typing felt stiff compared to pen on paper, but anonymity loosened her grip. She confessed to missing sock wars in hallway, chaos of packed lunches. To her shock, others echoed back, same, with their own versions of grief disguised as mundanity. One woman wrote about crying over an abandoned hockey stick in her garage. Linda snorted. She wasn't alone in her melodrama. Weeks in, she hit a wall. What was point of scribbling into void? But that leather notebook, now dotted with coffee rings, became her battleground. She stubbornly pushed past self-pity, digging into why silence unnerved her. Turns out, she missed herself most, woman buried under 2 decades of packed schedules. By winter, Linda's entries shifted. She documented rediscovered joys, absurdity of trying TikTok dances, knees protested, volunteering a literacy program where kids mangled war and peace pronunciations. Virtual Circle cheered her on with digital confetti emojis. Leather grew softer with use, just like her edges. Toronto's streets didn't feel so cold anymore. Linda's boot caught a crack in Toronto's bustling sidewalk, but she steadied herself, gripping that leather notebook like a lifeline. 50 years young and suddenly alone in a too-quiet apartment, she'd turned blank pages into battlefields, scribbling grief, then gratitude, then grand plans. Tonight, though, she wasn't just writing her comeback. She was leading one. Community center fluorescents buzzed overhead as she faced a half-circle of skeptical faces. A woman in leopard print glasses smirked, arms crossed. Another woo-woo journaling guru. Linda's pulse hammered, but she flashed a grin. Fam, if my cat's dramatic love letters to fridge can inspire me, your story's got power. Laughter loosened room. She slapped her notebook on table, scuffed cover, dog-eared corners, and flipped to a page splashed with wild ink. This, she declared, is where I rewrote my life. Who's ready to try? Hands crept up. Leopard glasses rolled her eyes, until she pulled a gutsy move. Bet you 5 Timbits your worst memory loses its sting, if you give it a plot twist. Challenge accepted. Pens scratched. Then, silence. A sniffle. Leopard glasses blinked hard. Damn. That actually worked. Someone snapped a pic. Woman mid-laugh, notebook raised like a torch. By morning, Rewrite Your Life was trending locally. Her inbox flooded, how'd you do it? Teach me. A news crew lurked by maple syrup stall St. Lawrence Market. And in that chaos, creator exhaled, running fingers over her notebook's creased spine. This wasn't just healing. It was a revolution. This is my start. Behind her, leopard glasses waved 2 coffees. So, when's next workshop? Crowd erupted. Linda winked. When my cat approves agenda. Turns out, blank pages hold more than words, they hold second acts. And hers? Just went viral. Linda's boot caught a crack in Toronto's bustling sidewalk, but her grip on that leather notebook never faltered. 50 years young, she'd started scribbling to outrun empty nest echoes. Turns out, she was sprinting toward a whole new rhythm. Mornings once heavy with quiet now hummed as her virtual journaling circle, Ink and Heart, bloomed into a global fam of women stitching stories onto pages. Who knew her quirky habit of doodling coffee stains into constellations would spark a movement? Community centers became her second home, hosting workshops where silver-haired newbies and midlife mavens alike cracked open fresh journals like fortune cookies. That leather notebook. Now a living thing, its spine softened by shared secrets, its margins crammed with sticky note epiphanies. Linda's grief had fermented into fuel. She guided others to mine their mess for gold, one wobbly sentence a time. By winter, Ink and Heart wasn't just a circle, it was a lifeline. Women from Boise to Brisbane mailed her dog-eared pages, their inky confessions braided with gratitude. Linda's favorite, a 70-something's manifesto scrawled on a diner napkin, "You made my wrinkles feel like plot twists." Toronto's skyline glittered as she tucked her notebook under one arm, grinning. Melancholy. Please. She was too busy building bridges out of bullet points. Grab a pen, your next chapter's waiting. Start scribbling wild today.